TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Bruce Pritchard, who works for Vince, has been with Vince for years. Bruce and I were pretty good friends at the time. Bruce was working for Paul Bosch in Houston. And I remember, and I wasn't happy with things because they were, things were getting slow. Bill didn't have his hand on it.
Right.
And I said, I might just put more time in Japan, and, if things don't get better here, I'm out of here. Well, Bruce was getting ready to go to interview for a job in New York.
Joel went too, right, Joel?
Yeah. Joel went as well. And so I went to Japan, and I said, look, drop my name there. I said, because they certainly know me. And, see if it gets a response. So while I'm in Japan, Bill sells the territory to Jim Crockett.
Right.
And I get news that I'm coming back to a territory that is no longer even owned by Bill Watts. And I said, well, don't worry though. Jim wants to use you. And they wanted to sign me to a contract. And so I get back, and then Bruce Pritchard calls me, and Bruce says, Ted, whatever you do, don't sign anything until you have a chance to talk to Vince McMahon, because they are definitely interested. And I said, great. So I went they had me go to a TV taping at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth. They were taping there. And I talked to Jimmy Crockett. And it was kind of funny. He says, well, what will it take for us to get you? And I said, well, let me put it to you this way, Jim. I said, I know what Luger's getting. And I said, Luger hasn't put half the time in the business, doesn't know. He's not a great worker.
Right.
Most of what Lex has got is he's got a tremendous look. And I said, that's what's carrying him. And I said, if I'm not worth every penny that guy's making, then you don't need me. And he says, okay, fair enough. So he put me, he agreed to the same deal that he was going to put, that he had Luger on. I said, well, that's not bad. No, that'll work. I said, plus I still go to Japan. He said, that's fine. I said, okay. And so I worked that night, but again, I hadn't signed any contract or anything. And I didn't even bring up anything else. And I went home, and I thought, well, like a week goes by, and no phone call or nothing. I thought, well, maybe they thought about it, and they fill that spot with somebody else. And I guess I'm going to be working for Crockett. And then the phone rings, and it's Vince. And he says, Ted, I got an idea. So I got an idea for something. I think that you're the guy for the job, but I don't want to tell you about it over the phone. I want you to fly up here. And I told him that I just talked to Crockett. And he says, well, come up here and at least hear what we got. So I went up there, and first class treatment right off the bat. And he lays it out for me, So we want to create it. Well, no, I take that back. He didn't lay it out for me. The first time I went up there, he says, man, we've got this idea. He says, what I want to tell you this is it's never been done before. And how many things in our business have never been done before? And he says, that in itself makes it unique. And he says, I know you can do it. He guaranteed me as much as he could guarantee me, but he would not give me the idea.
Right.
He says, I cannot give you this idea until I have your word that you're coming on board with me, because I don't want to give away a great idea. And I went, wow. And I said, I need time to think about this. And he said, I understand. And so that was that. And he got called out to a call. Pat Patterson was sitting there in this meeting. And Pat says, Ted, he says, let me put it to you this way. He says, think about this. He says, if Vince could put the tights on and climb in the ring, what he wants to do with you is what he would do with himself. He says, this is his idea. He created it. And he's going to do all he can to make it work. He says, that's all you really need to know.
Right.
He said, and so I said, okay. But I had made up my mind that I wasn't just going to do it. I was pretty sure. So anyway, I went home and I called Terry Funk. I said, Terry, I said, I shared everything with him. They said, Ted, he says, Vince McMahon has an idea for you, something that's never been done before, and something that he's going to push that hard. He says, pack your bags and don't look back. And I said, well, I thought that's what you'd say. And I said, and that's what I was going to do. But I just, I always want to run it by you. So then I fly back up there, and this time my wife goes with me. And I said, Vince, I'm your guy. And he says, would you like me to call Jim Crockett, or would you like to? I said, no, let me make that phone call myself. Right. And I called Jimmy, and I said, Jimmy, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And but Vince, in the meantime, that weekend, Vince treated me great. I mean, he put my wife and I up in the Helmsley Palace, and chauffeur and limo, and out to dinner at one of the nicest places, and the theater. And he says, "You go start being the $1 Million Man." It's incredible. Right. I mean, it's like a fairy tale becoming the $1 Million Man.
Now, did other guys resent the fact?
You know what? There might have been, but I never saw that. I think that the guys in the business, the guys that are really sincere in the business, they understand that it's a business, and it's like I have never looked at a guy who got a break, who got an opportunity to make money, and envied him, or I envied him in the way like, oh man, that's great, oh what a great break, and wish I could be, but to be mad or bitter, right? I've never been that way, and most everybody was great. They said, "Oh, what a great opportunity! What a great opportunity!" There might have been a few, because I remember Vince saying, "You're going to have more heat than anybody we've ever had," and I said, "Yeah," I said, "probably with most of the guys, right. Getting first class treatment and limousines and all this other stuff." It's no, don't worry. It's just It'll be okay.
What did you think of the gimmick when it was first explained?
Oh, are you kidding? I was nuts. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can remember going out and getting the limousine with my wife, because what was really funny is I used to imitate Jim Barnett. Right. My boy. I always imitate Jim. Everybody imitated Jim. Right. Well, while I was being interviewed, Jim Barnett was in the office up there at the time, and he was entertaining my wife. And when I got in the limousine with my wife says, I was biting a hole through my lips. She says, man, he talked just like you imitated him, but he was very nice. And I said, Melanie, pinch me. She said, why? I said, because you are not going to believe what's about to happen to us. And I told her, and she couldn't believe it either. It is literally like a fairy tale, the dream come true. Not only do you get the big break of your career, but you get it in style. You get it in nines. And I wrote it in my book. I'll say it on this camera in this interview. Vince McMahon gave me the biggest break of my wrestling career. Vince McMahon treated me better than any wrestling promoter has ever treated me, or I could ever imagine being treated. And that will forever be true. And I will forever be grateful to the World Wrestling Federation and to Vince McMahon for what he did for me. I will never forget that. But that doesn't keep me from feeling the way I do today about the direction that the business has taken and the direction that Vince has taken the business.